It wasn't that long ago that if I told you there was a story about the family member of a former vice president of the United States who just 4 years later became the president of the United States, who suddenly became a millionaire in countries where he couldn't speak the language and wasn't even an expert in the things that he was paid for. And the allegation was that some of this money was going back to the former vice president, now president. It would be big news. But as we know, we've known this for a long time about Joe and Hunter Biden. A scheme of essentially peddling access to one of the most powerful people in the world. When he was the vice president, when he was the former president, and when he was preparing to be the president himself, the Biden family have always found a way to make a bit of extra cash on the side. And this was all at the time when apparently Hunter Biden's life was falling apart, and there's plenty of evidence on a laptop somewhere that'll tell you just how bad his addiction to drugs and very poor choices were. But now imagine there was a business partner who was willing to tell all about this arrangement. Well, I've got that for you too.
There are hundreds of data points that Joe Biden was acting in a capitalistic term, I would say the chairman. The chairman of JP Morgan doesn't take 8 meetings down with the people, analyzing companies. The chairman serves a purpose, right? He's a figurehead. He shows up at meetings, shakes hands, advises, has faith in his team. Effectively, that was Joe Biden's role in the Biden family business ventures and around the world. And not just my venture. I met with him multiple times, but it's well documented.
And because there's money involved, imagine if there were people from the tax department, the IRS, whose job it was to investigate where this money came from, how much tax was or wasn't paid on it, and who was actually the recipient of the money. Well, I've got that for you too.
The IRS whistleblower who raised concerns about the Justice Department's investigation into Hunter Biden is now accusing federal prosecutors of offering a sweetheart deal to the president's son.
But then if I told you that the IRS and the Justice Department had made the decision that the only crime that the son of the former vice president, future and current president of the United States had to deal with was that he was paying his taxes late, that wouldn't quite match up with what this whistleblower was saying about some of the things that he found were being claimed as work expenses by that son.
Shapley said he uncovered conduct that warranted more serious charges.
There were personal expenses that were taken as business expenses. Prostitutes, sex club memberships, hotel rooms for purported drug dealers.
How much did Hunter Biden owe in taxes?
So from 2014 to 2019, it was $2.2 million.
2014, that was before 2016. You mean when his father was the vice president? And then 2018, when his father was preparing to run for president? And now imagine if there was new detail, and all of this comes via the reporting of CBS, a rare moment of mainstream media in the United States actually dealing with the real story of the smoking wreckage that is the reputation of Hunter Biden and the behaviour of his father. Because apparently these whistleblowers will not be greeted with the $1 million book advance and a permanent place on CNN or MSNBC. These are people who are truly brave because there's no there. There's no stardom for coming out and telling the truth. A truth that includes that the very people who they handed this information on to later said they couldn't do anything with it, despite apparently having the power to charge Hunter Biden.
Shapley provided lawmakers this contemporaneous email he wrote after an October meeting last year. Shapley says Weiss told him the opposite, that Weiss is not the deciding person on whether charges are filed.
It was just shocking to me.
And then finally, if I told you that there was a paper trail, if I told you that there were business partners, if I told you that there was a whistleblower, and then I told you that the whistleblower says it all links to the current President of the United States, it'd be big news, right?
There were certain investigative steps that we weren't allowed to take that could have led us to President Biden.
And you wanted to take them?
We needed to take them.
And you weren't allowed to take them.
That's correct.
But of course, the only reason it's not big news is because it's about a Democrat. This is huge news. A paper trail, a whistleblower, a business partner, and a seeming unwillingness of people to actually follow the trail because no one's above the law unless some people actually are.